Excuse
Welcome
me.
to live.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I am here. I am here with you. Let me just double check my microphone after the little the great
Do you
microphone
have the green
situation
light?
of 2020.
Is your green light on?
Listen, listen. I can't even be offended by that question because seriously, it wasn't last time.
I mean, the stuff, the things.
Entire
Gonna change
microphone off.
details.
Yeah. Okay. I think we I think we're good. Okay, I just checked it and the microphone really was wrong. Okay.
We didn't like Cleveland much anyhow.
Listen, we're not going to blow up Cleveland. Our people are here. Tony is here saying hello. Shauna is here. Lisa is here. I am excited. I am excited. The folks from the Married and Shit podcast are here. Quinora's here. Chris might be here as well.
Hey.
Um, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out that podcast, please do. It is a hilarious and practical look at coupling in the age of COVID in the year 2020. Excuse me. So, if you have not had an opportunity to check out the Married and Shit podcast, then please do check it out. And yes, I can say
And
that.
YouTube channel.
Yes, the YouTube channel as well. Definitely head over there. And we marked our live stream not child friendly with YouTube already before anybody reports my curse words. Okay. Um, how you doing today, Holland? I'm really asking. I am really, really asking. How are you doing?
Doing all right. It is. I looked up on one of those days today. It's gloomy outside
Mm-hmm.
and one of those rare days in Bay Area August where it's not even going to be 70 degrees today.
Yeah.
And so, but it's supposed to be 90 by the weekend, mind you. So,
Whoa.
uh, I
Is it
know,
really? It's
random.
gonna be that hot?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's one of those days where it's like gloomy, but it's not the gloomy where I feel like I don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let me tuck into my sweater and like get in and crank it out. And so I'm thankful for that because I got quite a few things that I need to crank it out. So I'm happy about the merger of those two things.
I get that. I totally get that. Well, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad too. Then.
How you doing? And who is you?
I am Jill Bates Moore. I am the other half of Dahlia Law Group. For those of you who are new to the stream, we are a small but mighty law firm based in Oakland, California, and our work in the world is to make legacy and estate planning and things related to that accessible for everybody because everybody has a legacy worth planning for. So we are pretty practical minded, plain spoken folks. So if you are here for the most legal of legalese, then
This is a WYSIWYG production.
yeah, you're gonna be disappointed. This is, I mean, you asked me how I'm doing, and I'm doing better than my hair would tell you that I am. You all just gonna get this COVID hair and these COVID eyebrows, and we're just gonna be okay with it today. We are embracing the fullness of our humanity. Even though I must do something about my hair soon because my actual mother asked me the other night. We were on a video chat, and she was like, "So, what is it?"
What do you say?
Oh, so it's your own family. They will do it to you.
Your own people.
But I will say that we have been up to some really wonderful things in the work, um, in the life of our firm and our business, in the life of some of the other businesses that we support. Like we don't co-own those businesses or anything like that, but they are important members of our community. And so we've been busy with some stuff, and that hasn't left me a whole lot of hair and eyebrow and nail time because I'm not really efficient at those things. And I'm taking this sheltering in place stuff seriously, so I'm not going out to have those things done. So you all just gonna have to give me a bit of grace. Okay. What are we talking about today?
Okay, I was tracking to make sure that you actually answered the question.
Oh, I thought I said I'm fine. I thought I said I'm
I,
fine. I'm sorry.
yes, that's why I was tracking. I was like, no, no, she said you better than how your hair might make it appear. So we're good. Just checking.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Busy with some good stuff and trying to get my sleep schedule some behavior. So sorry, I should have led with that.
Hey, win, win, win. I love it. So what we are talking about today is now what? We have dealt with all of the parts of something that in our office we like to call a personal authorization plan, which is authorizing the people to take care of all of your personal business. And so now that we've got the documents, what do we do next?
Yep. So today is we envision today being a really this will probably be a more compact conversation. So as you have questions, don't hold them. Just fling them at us like the Fast and the Furious. We will see them come in. We will address as many of them as we possibly can. And if we need to follow up with you afterward or something like that, then we'll do that. Um, yeah, this is all about practical tools and tips. So for some of you who may be here who might not have been tracking the series in real time because life, um, here's what we have talked about so far. We have talked about Advance Health Care Directives. We have talked about durable powers of attorney for property and financial decision making. We have talked about nominating guardians for the children who depend on us in life, who we have custody or jurisdiction over. We have talked about nominating conservators, and we explained that conservators are, in the state of California, are guardians for adults. Um, we also talked about HIPAA authorizations. So that's the tool, remember, where it allows somebody to have access to your personal health information, but not to make any decisions for you. And so with those tools in mind, you can probably see how those are in a, I guess, sort of in a group where they authorize people to do something or to get something, whether it's access to your accounts or access to your information. And we talked in all of those episodes about why that's important. And so if you need to get caught up, we created a playlist on our YouTube channel. It is Dahlia Law Group YouTube channel. If you're not there right now, I'm not sure how you're watching this, but if you're on the phone talking to somebody, telling them where to go, tell them to go to the Dahlia Law Group YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
excuse me, and no, for real, do that. But if you
Send them the
go,
link.
right, there's a playlist in there called the Nitty Gritty of estate planning tools. This is the basics, so you can get caught up with us there. So we have all of those tools. We have discussed what they are, and we've lightweight talked about what to do with them. Our goal today is to really just put all of those practical tips and tools for what to do, easy for me to say, with these tools in one place. Oh,
Say
geez.
that 5 times fast.
Listen, please start talking, friend, because clearly.
So, the first, and the reason that we're talking about this now instead of talking about a new document is because next week we're going to shift gears, little preview for you, that we're going to start talking about wills and trust beginning next week. So let's talk about what to do with our personal authorization plan, because it's possible that for some people, this is your legacy and estate plan. It's just the personal authorization plan before we shift into that next part of the conversation. And so the first two documents that we talked about in your personal authorization plan were your Advance Health Care Directive and your HIPAA authorization. So those were the documents around your medical treatment decision-making power and access to healthcare information. As you can imagine, for those documents, when they come up, it is likely to be an emergency situation. And so you want people to have easy access to these, and you want them to be in a couple of different places. This is not the one where folks need to go searching to locate this document. So with that thought in mind, a couple of things that you're going to do with your Advanced Healthcare Directive and HIPAA authorization. One of those is you're going to put it on file with your primary care doctor so that it is a part of your medical chart. Another thing that we recommend doing, which is going to sound goofy as all get out, but it's legit, I promise, which is that you're going to take a photocopy of those two documents. You're going to take it and put it in a clear zip top bag and drop it in your freezer. And the reason that you're going to do that is because this is the document that you need people to know about your decisions and to know who to contact if somebody needs to make a decision for you. So if an emergency responder, for instance, comes to see about you, they know to look in places like that so that they can try to locate that paperwork to find out who they might need to call if that person is not already present with you.
Yep.
Then last up on that part of the list, another thing that we'd recommend that you do is update your phone so that it identifies that you have these documents and where to locate them, and at a minimum, who your primary agent is.
Hold please.
Now,
Can I jump in here for a second? Just to add to the zip top bag before we move too far away from that. If you have children that are younger than age 18, include the nomination of guardians for your children with those documents that you put in the Ziploc bag and toss in the back of the freezer. The reason for that, or at least our reasoning for that, is in the event of a true, as my grandmother would say, show enough emergency, where you cannot communicate for yourself who should be authorized to take charge of your children, where they should go, that sort of thing. That document, even though it is meant to be a document used in court, that document can help emergency responders, law enforcement, mental health personnel, anybody who is coming to see about you and your children, and your minor children are there and they need to know what to do for them. It can help them to not default to calling CPS or Child Protective Services, right? They can identify an authorized person to come and see about your children. So if you have children who are younger than age 18, who are dependent on you, then drop that guardian nomination in the Ziploc bag or zip top bag in the freezer.
Yes. And that includes even if they are older, even if your children are older teenagers, such that, for instance, you leave them at home alone, still go ahead and have that guardian nomination in there.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for indulging that interruption, friend. Carry on.
Yes. Oh, updating your phone. So you're going to update your phone. And when I say update your phone, you may be thinking, but what if my phone is locked? Very good question. And so on your smartphone, particularly if you have an iPhone, and I believe Android also has a similar capability, there is a way that you can go in and update your health information for a medical ID and emergency contact, such that even when your phone is locked, somebody would be able to get access to just that information. So, some of the things that it will allow you to add to that emergency contact and medical ID screen are going to be things like your name, your full birth date, who your emergency contact is, notes for if you have any allergies to any medications or anything that they may need to know about. It also allows you to add your blood type and then if there are additional notes. And so in that additional note section, when that screen comes up, you can add, I have an Advance Health Care Directive. This is where it's located, or who has access to it.
I would also say that, and just indulge me for a moment here, if you would. I mean, like more than usual, because as we were discussing yesterday, apparently I'm annoying. So it's a different story for a different day. But I acknowledge this. I acknowledge this. Okay. So so one of the things that happens when we have these tools, right, is that we can get to the point of finishing all of this great work. I mean, you have done your good work in getting these tools put together, and you have, absolutely, yes, all the pats on the back. You deserve all of them because this is very good and very important work, right? So much so that we dedicate our professional lives to doing it, right? So once the work is done, the papers can just kind of sit, right? Sometimes we put the papers in the safe deposit box. Sometimes we put them in an envelope in the closet. Sometimes we put them under the bed. Sometimes we put them somewhere and we don't even remember where we put them, right? And so this thing that Alicia is asking you to do with your phone, and the thing that we asked you to do with your healthcare directive and your HIPAA authorization in terms of giving it to your primary care doctor. I just put that tip. I just put that tip on the screen, and putting things in the freezer. The goal of this is to make these tools show up for you in the world. Right? The papers are important and necessary, and they are only part of the story, right? We have to make sure that those papers can actually show up for you in the way that you need them to in the world. And so part of that is the discussion that we've already had, and we will continue to roll the tips into the comments box or whatever the text box is on the screen. But also there are some communication things that are important, right? So when you're putting notes in your phone, when you're putting those notes in your phone, don't be shy about including practical tips of your own, like call my friend Alicia, right? Contact Alicia and tell her to come and get the kids, right? Like Alicia has the phone tree, right? Like she's the person who knows all of the numbers to call, all of the people to put in place, right? Or to activate. Put that in your note. If there is somebody who you need to sort of be the bell ringer, that it is time to execute the the plan, right? It's time to do the thing. Even if that person does not have a job in your plan documents, that's a really important thing for you to keep in mind. Even if that person's only job is to make the calls, to tell everybody, okay, okay, it's time for you to get in the game now. that's fine, right? It doesn't have to be somebody who actually has an authorized role in your planning or who is listed anywhere in your personal authorization plan tools. Okay, in those documents. I think that that's really important these days when families are dispersed. Right, we're sheltering in place in different places. We work and live in different places from some of our family and so on. So anyway, included in those notes all of the things that Alicia said, and also if there are additional bits of information that are necessary for to bridge that communication gap so that people either know that they need to act now or know where the documents are so that they can get the authorization, then put it right there in that note.
Yeah. Another thing to think about in the note as well is if there is something that would need to be taken care of at your home that you need somebody to be called. So if you have pets that need somebody to come get them or see about them or something, then make sure to include that in the call so and so to come get Fido.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely that. I'm trying to drop these tips in the in the screen box. But
Yes, that's good.
yeah, I'm gonna pause that for a second because I can't do both things at once that
Well,
well.
while you do that, I'm going to say on the next thing, which is
Okay, thank you.
another thing that you want to do is when you have your documents, once you've gotten them signed off on and notarized and you've got your pretty pristine originals. Now, we've told you that you're going to make copies of these and send them to a few places. So, like, we're giving it to the primary care doctor and whatnot. Another thing that you want to do is scan a copy for yourself. And the reason that you're going to do that is so you've got your original and you've put it in that place for safekeeping, and hopefully your place for safekeeping works better than mine, where it's so safe that I forget sometimes where the safekeeping is. And so the reason you want to have that scanned one available is because sometimes you might need to be able to access this document from different places. So you're standing at the doctor's office and they ask you something about it and you realize, I know this is in my Advance Health Care Directive, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. So you can be able to call it up that way. The other is the very practical thing that sometimes life happens in different ways. So something could happen where you cannot get access to your physical copy per se. It has been destroyed because fire, flood, famine, whatever, or you're traveling, something of that nature. And so being able to have a digital copy that you can access elsewhere means that the decisions and the fact that you have executed this document does not get lost just because you may not be able to locate the original in that moment.
Absolutely. I think that that is also a really great way, depending on how comfortable you are with the technology. That's a really great way of sharing access um, to the documents themselves. We get that question a lot, right? Like,
Mhm.
do I need to give copies of these documents to all of the people who have jobs in them? And I mean, sure, you can distribute copies of the documents like a deck of cards if you want to. I mean, you can treat it like an Uno game. It's totally fine. But one of the things that you might run into is having to collect all of those documents and send out new ones when you
Keep
make
track of it.
changes, right? Because life is dynamic. These decisions change all the time. What were you going to say, Holland? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just saying that things change, so
Mm-hmm.
you got to keep track of all those cards. So when you pass out the 52 cards of the deck, you got to be able to pull them all back.
Exactly. And so it can be easier to just store a single set in a shared folder, in a digital folder, excuse me, that you can share with whoever needs to have access to it. right? One of the things that you can also take advantage of is automation. Alicia said something earlier about taking a copy of your Advance Health Care Directive, and for example, and making sure that a copy of that is available on your phone. Well, these days on the iPhone, you have the shortcuts app, and I don't know what it's called on Android. But you know, they always have really similar, if not duplicate, technologies. So you can automate. Hey, if my emergency contact is called, send a copy of my Advanced Healthcare Directive, right, to that contact, right? Like you can do that if you want to get that specific into the technology. But yeah, having a place where your authorized agents can get access to the most current, most up to date tool is something to be thinking about here as well. And I think Alicia's suggestion about taking a copy and holding it in a digital place is in a digital folder is really well placed.
Why, thank you.
You are welcome. Oh, I wanted to say if you can see the show notes for this episode, you will see in there instructions from Apple and from Google about how to make those updates to your medical ID. I think it's called on the iPhone, or your emergency contact on your Android devices. We already sort of gathered up those instructions for you, and links to them are already in the show notes. And if you cannot access them, please let me know.
Superb. So what you were just saying actually brings us to kind of the next thought of the now what of who do we tell that we have this plan? And so that sometimes is a concern for people of, now that I have this, do I need to tell everybody? Do I need to wallpaper with it? Because some of these decisions I might not want everybody to know, because I might not want to have to start the fight with you now when you find out that you are not my person. You think you are my person, but the paper says that you are not the primary person. And so the answer to that is no, you do not have to tell the world now that you have these documents. So for your Advanced Health Care Directive, you really don't have to tell anyone other than make sure that your doctor has it and has a copy of it in your chart. Now, it's also a really good idea to at least tell the people that you have given jobs to in the document that you have given them that job, so that if somebody reaches out to them to say that they are named in the document, that they are not caught off by surprise with this. Another reason that it's a good idea to let that person know that you've given them a job is because they might have questions for you now about making sure they understand the instructions that you're giving them, so that they can make sure that they know what they need to do to get this job right for you. Mm-hmm. So being willing to discuss that with at least the people that you've given these jobs to is a really good idea. Not a have to, but a really good idea to do that. The other thing you want to do is to let them know where or how to access those documents. And that's another question that, similar to what Joel was saying of where do we put them, that we get a lot. And so that becomes a thing that's about your comfort level, and also the people that you've selected for jobs, and also the interconnectedness of the people that you've selected to do the job. So some of us have networks of people where these are all of my people that I have, but they don't necessarily know each other. Or if you have a network where it's all my people know who they are because we're kind of in a single circle, or thinking about COVID times, what do we call them now? Our pods of people. Then they may know how to contact each other. So it might look like I'm going to have a point person. And so I give all of my things to the primary person and let the other folks know that person has copies of all of the documents. So if something happens, everybody contact point person. If your people are not in a connected network, then you're going to need to make sure they have the contact information for point person.
Yeah.
And so one of the advantages of doing that, of doing something like a point person setup like that, means fewer people that you need to keep track of for when there is an update to the documents that you have to make new distributions to, giving them to them. So that's a thing to think of there. You don't have to give them copies right now, but at least let them know how and when they can access those things. And some really practical things to think about is sometimes we think, oh, well, these are my important papers, so I'm going to put them in my safe or my safety deposit box, which is you need to make sure they can get access to that. Just knowing that it's in there is not good enough. So if it's in the safe deposit box, then what you do need to give them, for instance, is a copy of your durable power of attorney so that the bank will let them get into that box if they needed to get that access to that for you. If it's in the safe, then you either need to give them the combination to the safe or let them know how to get to the place where the combination to the safe is located. So think about the how does this person get to this document without having to talk to me to get to it? Because when they need it, they're not going to be able to talk to you about how to get to it.
Yeah, I think that's really important because these personal authorization plan documents are, these tools are the tools of your everyday living. These are things that are, that are just part of the work and the flow of your life. Sure, they are relevant in emergency situations. They are relevant in situations where you have maybe you've lost capacity to make your own decisions. I'm talking about cognitive capacity. Maybe you have lost physical capacity to make your own decisions, but those are not necessarily permanent conditions, right? I mean, think about for those of you who are parents through having children the biological way. Sorry, I almost couldn't get it out because the thought of it is terrifying to me. I'm like, whoa, goodness. But anyway, for those of you
As
who have,
opposed to them coming in a little sponge like a sea monkey.
right, but for those of you who have been part of that labor and delivery process is actually what I should have said. So anyway, think about how, I mean, think about what you had capacity, what decisions you had capacity, to make at that time, whether you were experiencing the contractions in your body or you were present for them. Think about that, right? Really temporary situation, but you might need some help with the heavy lifting, right? And these tools can also be useful as a convenience. Think about when you're traveling, right? Think about, if you're somewhere and can't get access to a check to pay the property taxes or or whatever, you need somebody to access an account or access some property or some money, right? Those things are convenience tools as well. And so with that in mind, right, with the way that these tools work for you in your day-to-day life in mind, consider that as you're deciding where to put them, right? These don't necessarily need to be top secret, right? There may be some, they may be private, right? And for me, the distinction between private and secret is that private means it's not a
It's
secret,
not everybody's
but it's
business.
also none of your business, right? So there's that, but they don't necessarily, they don't necessarily have to be stored with the crown jewels, right? Some of the other tools, maybe the trust, maybe the wills that that we'll be talking about starting next week. Maybe you put those under lock and key, but these don't necessarily have to be that way. I feel like I took a really long
Yeah.
time to explain that. Sorry about that.
It makes sense. I think kind of the only last piece of that we kind of talked around it, but I don't think we said it specifically. If you opt to give hard copies of the documents to people, with your set of documents, actually write down a list. Think like your grocery list and write it down for who you have given copies to and of which documents.
Yeah.
And when you gave them that document. And the reason that you're going to do that is because the thought is when you make your updates, you're going to say, oh, okay, this is now replacing the one that I have. So I can go into that same stack of documents or that folder and put my new one in there. And so you need to know who you gave that old copy to so that you can make sure that they have the most current version of the document.
Right.
So
That's a
make sure that you keep track of that for yourself.
Yeah, that is important for you to know for yourself. It is also important for the people who will be stepping in on your behalf to know that.
Yeah.
Also, it happens all too frequently that people get into disputes, right, about who had what authority to do what. Just fill in the blank. I mean, you've seen the daytime court TV shows, just like I have. Y'all know y'all watch Greg Mathis. But
Well, Your Honor.
right. But in any event, it can be a very real question that can waste time, frankly, trying to get an answer
Yeah.
to. And the question is, which one of these documents is the right one? Because sometimes people put dates on, sometimes they don't, sometimes they get the date wrong, sometimes, I mean, whatever. So keeping that list visible for your folks who are going to be stepping in on your behalf is also useful, so that they know what the deal is. Anything
Yes,
else? I
because
think
as
that's.
for me
Oh,
in my
sorry.
house, I am allergic to pain, and it is against my religion.
Oh,
So I want no delays in the care. Like, get to it. If that is you,
so much.
then making sure everybody has the most accurate version of it to get with the getting is important.
So much. I love it. I love it. So I think that's the end of our list for today. We just really wanted to make sure um, that we put a bow on this particular benchmark, because for some of us, the personal authorization tools are the only things that we'll need. Right? It might be. I know. I know. I know. Yes, I did just say that for some of us, we do not need a trust. We do not need a will. It is not necessary for some of us to do that. But we do need these tools to authorize clearly and give clear instructions to folks to act on our behalf and to stand in for us when that is important. So we just wanted to spend some time here. Really talking about how to make practical use of those tools. Go ahead, Holland.
And even if you are in the camp that will and trust are necessary, sometimes it takes you a little bit longer to think through some of those decisions. And so, as you're going through that decision making process, you might go ahead and put this personal authorization plan together while you're figuring out the rest of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, these things that we're talking about today apply to, as it turns out, everybody.
Who does it apply to?
Everybody. You and your mama and them.
Oh goodness. Okay, so we're clearly a little punchy today. We're clearly a little
But
punchy
better
today.
than
I love it.
yesterday.
I love it. Yeah. Yesterday I was. I mean, it was all. There were so many questions yesterday, but anyway. Speaking of questions, if you all have any, we want to stick around for a bit to make ourselves available for those. I know that as we're talking, sometimes listening and formulating questions don't happen at the same time. At least they don't for me. And sometimes I need a minute, so I want to give you that space. And while we do that, I am going to put up our last practical tip number 5 for today. And Alicia will tell you how you can find us if those questions happen to come up for you later.
Well, before I tell you that, I'm going to tell you the tip too, in case you're listening but not looking at the notes.
Hmm?
Wait, we have to do our homework. People have homework.
This whole episode was homework. Like all of it is homework. That's why we're here.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
So, the thought that you need to be having in going through this is, if you have not done some of these things that we have talked about, as far as you already have your documents or you've been creating them along with us, think through, where are my documents? Go lay hands on them. And then remember, who have I told? What have I done? Because you might have some backfilling to do to make sure that they'll be able to work for you the way that you want them to. So, with that, while questions are being formulated, where you can find us is, of course, here at the YouTube channel every Wednesday at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern Time. You can also find us on the Instagrams at Dahlia Law, spelled Dahlia, like the flower. And you can find us through our website at www.dahlialawgroup.com. And as a special feature as well, we will be back tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific, and we will be doing our legacy and immigration crossover with Bianca Jordan, who seems to come every week prepared to blow our bangs all the way back and snatch the edges with some learning about immigration and the crossovers with legacy. And so even if that is not something that applies strictly to you, really important conversation happening so that you can have some understanding about some of the things that, for instance, that you're seeing in the news, the implications for those, because even if it doesn't impact you directly, it impacts somebody that you know. And as people who, while we are also lawyers, hearing things that every time Bianca talks to us, I learn something new that is just like, and so being able to share that information with the people that you know, the people that you care about, is really important to make sure people really understand that. So come back and join us for that conversation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of our goal here is to really be a resource for the issues of legacy, right? And immigration is a legacy issue, and so talking about that here is something that we're privileged to be able to do, and also to provide some planning tools or practical guidance for how to deal with some of those crossover issues, or how to prepare. Yeah, I mean, it's part of our mission. So I do not see any questions that have come in. So, with your indulgence, I am just going to, for those of you who are not in a position to read the screen, I am just going to recite back those practical tips, and then we are going to fly and be free. Practical tip number 1. Give copies of your HIPAA authorization and your healthcare directive to your primary care doctor. Make sure that they put it in your chart so that that authorization follows you. Practical tip number 2. I guess I could put it on the screen as I'm reading it for those of you who are following along that way. Practical tip number 2 is to put copies of your Advance Health Care Directive, durable power of attorney, and nomination of guardian of your children in a zip-top bag and store it in your freezer. Practical tip number 3, update the medical ID, that's what the app is called on the iPhone, or your emergency contact on your phone. Include a note in there that your personal authorization documents are in the freezer. And also remember to include whatever else in that note would be helpful for your folks to get the right communications out and to get it right for you when it matters. Excuse me. Practical tip number 4, tell the people you have given jobs in your personal authorization plan, tell them what you're asking them to do, and make sure you allow them to ask questions to make sure that they understand how to get it right for you when it counts. All right. And practical tip number 5, if you have given physical copies of your plan documents to other people, make a list of which documents you gave, who you gave them to, and when you did that, so that both you, they, and anybody who is standing in for you later are clear about what's the status of the documents and which ones are current. All right, you all, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for your appreciation. Lisa saying thank you both for this generous sharing. And the folks over at the Married and Shit podcast, Quinora and Chris, are saying that this series is a wealth of knowledge. The information is necessary for Black folks who, culturally, sometimes we just don't discuss these things in households, or sometimes we don't know, and that's why we're here. So thank you all very much. Any final words, Holland?
Thanks.
All right, you all. Have a good day. See you next week or tomorrow night.
Yes.